Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Black Men Matter series on the male perspective. The podcast that's all about dispelling stereotypes and shining a light on the rich and varied experiences of Black men from all around the world. Each episode aims to broaden understanding and foster appreciation for their unique stories that often go unheard. Now, here is your host, Lana Reid, to introduce you to yet another remarkable Black man with an insightful perspective to share.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Male Perspective. I am your host, Lana Reid, and today, on this day, I have the pleasure of sitting down with a gentleman by the name of Jordan Thierry. He is a writer, filmmaker, and owner of Dream Chase Media. Got some wonderful, impactful stuff going on. I'm looking forward to spending some time with him today. But first and foremost, as I always do, sir, I take a quick moment to pause and say thank you to you for making time for me today. Time is a gift. Once we give it, we can't get it back. So I truly appreciate you setting aside this time of your day to sit and chat with me. And with that, sir, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Lana. I appreciate you. Appreciate you having me on. I'm excited for our conversation, and let's get into it.
Awesome. Get into it because I got a little bit of time and a lot of stuff to pack in here today. Now, as I mentioned in the quick, brief opening there, you are a filmmaker, and creative individuals are very mysterious beings in this ecosystem we call the human experience. So I want to know first and foremost, how is it that you got into this niche space?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of answers to that question, but I can go back as far as my childhood, and spending my summers at my grandparents' house. They had a video store right down the street, and you could rent 3 videos for $1 called Family Video,
You're
back in Galesburg,
dating yourself.
Illinois. Yeah, I know. um, and my brother and my cousins, we would all just stay up late watching movies all night, like every night. Being a young black boy, not really feeling like there was a lot of representation in the media in terms of traditional TV, but then also I grew up in Portland, Oregon. So I was also growing up in a predominantly white environment. And so I was really attracted to media and imagery that depicted the Black experience, or a proposition of the Black experience. I learned later in life that that wasn't a Black experience. That was just the media, right, doing what it
Mm-hmm.
does. But that's where I really fell in love with cinema, with storytelling, watching the films of Spike Lee and John Singleton and the Hughes brothers and Robert Townsend and all the greats from the 80s and 90s. And I wanted to get into film from that point. And I started, when I was in high school, we had a camcorder, and I started like making little movies with my neighbors and stuff. And that's really how I fell into the love. And when I got to college, I realized that that was something I could major in.
Mm.
Uh, through journalism. And I really became a sponge of like Black history. And I realized that our library at the University of Oregon had just a volume of documentary films that were just sitting there. And I watched all of them. Like any Black history related documentary I could watch, I did, and that was like a true gift for me, to just be able to have access to that information because it was all stuff that I wasn't taught in school. And 2 films in particular really inspired me to go into the documentary field, which was one called All Power to the People about the Black Power movement, and another called Life in Debt, which is about Jamaica and the World Bank, and the crisis of debt that they were in and continue to um, be in just due to the way that the world banking system worked. And so that's how I ended up on this path.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. Now, before I go on, um, dispel a myth for the audience that might not know, because you mentioned that you were from Portland.
Mm.
How many of us are in Portland?
Oh man. So yeah, there is a history of Black people in
Right.
Portland that goes back as early as like the 1800s. But some people may have heard that, Oregon did have a law on the books that excluded Black people from living in the state for a long time.
Wow.
And so that's one of the reasons why, as Black people moved out west and towards California,
Mhm.
they didn't make it up to Oregon as often because of that exclusionary law.
Mhm.
But since the World War II, there's been a significant Black community that lived in Portland and was segregated and lived first in a kind of riverside neighborhood called Vanport, which flooded, and
Mm.
people lost their homes, and folks relocated to Northeast Portland, which then became a predominantly Black neighborhood until the most recent sort of wave of gentrification in the early 2000s. That now folks are just kind of spread out for the most part. The community's been diluted, but the institutions are still there and still going strong. My family is not necessarily part of that long history. My family's from Galesburg, Illinois, Midwestern folks. My parents moved to Portland in the 80s for job opportunities.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think I read somewhere long ago that there's some rich history of us in Portland. I think I seem to
Yeah.
recall like a hotel or something like that. But
Yeah,
we
yeah. They had the Black
we
hotels, had the Black everything,
yeah, we have our footprint out there. So
absolutely.
okay. So let me get back to the filmmaking. I have a few friends that are filmmakers and screenwriters, and one of the things that they always say to me often is that actually birthing a work, it's sort of like a toxic relationship. Like one day I love you, and the next day I hate you.
Mm.
What is so stressful and problematic for a creative to actually give birth to a piece of art?
That's a great question. Maybe I would name three things. They're probably just like constantly competing for which one is the most powerful or, so I think one is managing other people's expectations and perceptions of what your work is and will be or should be.
Mm,
So once you put out one work, people expect the next work to be of a similar nature, a similar quality, from a similar perspective, right? But as human beings, we're always evolving, and so as artists, we're always evolving, and sometimes our perspective on issues may change, or sometimes with the format that we're using, the medium, we may want to experiment with something different,
right.
right? And so I think like as a filmmaker, and people can probably see this most with musicians and with filmmakers who there's a director that you really like. They made a film that you loved, and then the next film comes out and it's like completely different, and you're like, what the hell was that? And so people get mad, and people get vocal, right? And same thing with artists and albums and the experimental albums, right? I remember when
Mhm.
Common came out with the what was the Aquarius album,
Mhm.
and people were like, man, what is this, right? But that's I think that's part of the fear because you may lose fans. And then I think the other thing is the economics of it, right? We're often trying to figure out how to make a living doing what we love, telling the stories, offering the social cultural critiques of society, paying tributes to our communities, exploring, issues there, um, and while remaining true to our values. Um, and probably artists are some of the most like I think it maybe comes with the territory of being the most stuck in a good way and rooted in our values,
Mhm.
um, which can conflict with what's going to help you make a living or reach the pinnacle of financial success, right? Because there's an economy that comes with it, and that comes with it involves, you know, consumers or customers or clients, what have you, what they want, and you navigating that line between, catering to other people's visions or desires or needs versus what you artistically want to express in that moment. And then I think the other piece is just like the know-how of the economics of it. If you're doing artwork just for fun and your own personal gratification, I think that's the most wonderful thing because it's the most freeing and liberating thing, right? You're not necessarily constrained by these other questions. And if you pursue that other pathway of like trying to make a living off of it, or at least trying to get some additional income from it, you're also confronting just like the logistics of basically running a business.
Mm,
You are running some kind of business, whether that business is just you as the artist incorporated. um and that's, that's not for everybody. It requires um some management and some, being patient and being customer service oriented, and then just dealing with like paperwork, which is probably not something a lot of artists, yeah, artistic people like to do, right? Because they're artists for a reason.
I just want to create my work. I don't want
Yeah,
to,
yeah,
fill out no tax forms or anything.
exactly. Like, so yeah.
So you've just explained why I have not heard from D'Angelo in so long, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly.
Man, come on now.
Yeah,
Give
yeah.
us something, right?
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Give us
Mm-hmm.
something. All right. So let me shift to Dream Chase Media. So
Mm-hmm.
wonderful, wonderful, amazing stuff you're doing over there. And I don't want to mess it up. So could you share
Yeah.
all of the work that goes on there and what's the mission behind the company?
Yeah, so Dream Chase Media, we started out really just focused on telling stories at the intersection of community, creativity, and social change, basically. And the goal was to really connect people that were doing work in community, justice advocates,
Mhm.
with like creative storytelling to help uplift like their communities, uplift different issues that were impacting folks, and also just depict the powerful work that they're doing. And after several years, I realized that this work is also like really helping them from a developmental perspective, to raise money and attract
Mm.
donors, right? Because it's basically marketing and branding for a lot of nonprofit organizations. And so that's sort of where we sit now, but not exclusively. But we do work with a lot of nonprofit organizations, to just like help them with their storytelling, whether that be short documentary or graphic design or something just like interactive, and with the perspective that like we're also doing this to help you build and sustain your organization and attract new supporters, right? And so before, that last layer wasn't necessarily a part of the selling point or the perspective, but after experience of what people really were looking for and what the impact of the work was, I decided to add that on. Um, but we're also just working on like some documentary projects, just for the sake of telling really dope stories. And so we're working on one right now related to intimate partner violence, i.e., domestic violence, and how relationships can be either repaired or at least brought some accountability and closure for
Mhm.
harm that may have been caused, and telling us documentary stories about people that have actually gone through that experience, working with the foundation in California to produce that, and then also in the early stages of looking at producing a documentary focused on funerary rites in Ghana, and the role of music, the role of traditional art forms in funerary rites, and why West Africans and Ghanaians in particular like actually invest a lot of resources, time, energy, and money in celebrations of passings of life, because it's a passing on to the ancestral realm, and the journey to meet the ancestors is one of the most important milestone of someone's life. Connecting with an artist, a drummer, by the name of King Takoli on that project, and we're really excited to get into that next year too.
Mm, good stuff. Good stuff.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay. Okay. Well, let me backtrack because you just said a whole bunch there.
I know.
So, with the film, the domestic violence film, is there a title to it yet or a working title?
No, we don't have a working title yet.
or you just don't want to share it with me?
Yeah, but no, we don't have it yet, so I can't tell you what it is.
Okay. So this ties into also, is that in line with the phone number to help out with
It's
domestic
it-
violence?
yeah, so
Call for change?
it's connected. It's part of the same kind of family of activists and advocates that I work with in California, specifically, that are fighting to really put a dent in the rates of domestic violence in our communities and communities of color, and really see what the role of men can be in that work, because historically men have been left out of solutions to ending intimate partner violence, when oftentimes it's men who are the ones who are causing harm. And so
Mhm.
how do we actually really start to tackle that problem at the root, which is, addressing some of the sexist ideas and behaviors, and normalization of like violence and dominance and um, uh, controlling behavior that men are often socialized to have, right? So that's part of that effort. And one of the big things that I'm supporting these activists in California with is the promotion of a helpline for people who are actually worried about causing domestic violence, or having like some serious issues in their relationships, and they're worried about whether or not, they're going to continue to be safe in their relationship, or if they've already, hurt someone that they care about.
Mhm.
um, Instead of, not addressing that problem, and maybe law enforcement, the lawyers, the courts, and the police getting involved, which statistically just it doesn't work. It doesn't effectively actually stop violence, and it doesn't
Mhm.
effectively like help people heal and be safe. The helpline, it's called a call for change, is designed to help people find the resources that they need in their communities and start understanding their behaviors. So yeah, callforchange.org is the website, and I'm really proud to just be a part of that effort, helping to promote the helpline in California and beyond.
Okay, so we'll have some films and stuff, promotional films and stuff marketed
Yeah,
out there.
yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
okay. So I think I saw on your website as I was roaming around being nosy, you offer some other tools for nonprofits as well besides that, right? Did I
Yeah,
see
yeah,
that?
have a little. Yeah, yeah. We could put together a toolkit on our website, just for nonprofits that are like doing storytelling work. So maybe if you're an executive director or a communications director, or you just partnered up as an intern, just some like tools and guides about like how do you start to create a short documentary about the work that you're doing.
Mhm.
What do you ask the people that you're interviewing who've been a part of your, say, your workforce development program, right?
Yeah.
Or something like that. How do you ethically, portray people and ask for their consent, their permission, when you utilize their lived experience for your
Mhm.
organizational benefit, right? Navigating some of those more complicated questions. And so the toolkit has probably a dozen or so of those the guides that anyone can access if they're exploring or in the process of producing some media with a social impact.
Okay. All right. So we can't just take our smartphones out, start taking people, putting them up on social
Yeah,
media.
no, no. And that's what a lot of folks do, right? And so, people just start, they go to the event, they take the photos, they upload them to the site without necessarily getting people's permission. And also, sometimes people are in, as we're seeing now, right? People are in precarious and vulnerable situations where they shouldn't necessarily be publicly identified
Hmm.
because of, potential attacks and from the police and ICE, and or like former partners, right? Ex-husbands,
Hmm.
ex-boyfriends, etc.
Yeah. So much stuff going on. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, Let me get to, since you won't tell me the title of the new film,
I wish I had one for you.
since you won't give me the inside scoop, I'm gonna talk about a few of the things that you do have out for everybody to
Yeah.
partake in. And one is your book, a kid's book about systemic racism. Now,
Yeah.
as I get into that, one of the things that I read that you target the age 5 to 9. Why was it important for you to make the book for that age bracket?
Yeah, so a kid's book about is a company that creates these books on difficult topics to help teachers and parents, adults, speak with kids about some more complex and difficult topics that oftentimes were historically, like my parents' generation and their parents, avoided talking to their kids about,
Hmm.
right? And so the kid's book about systemic racism builds off of the founder of that company's first book called A Kid's Book About Racism. And so his book talked about racism, like more at the interpersonal level, right? That kids may experience in school, their neighborhood, et cetera. After the murder of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, we really wanted to explore doing something deeper
Hmm.
because the conversations around like systemic racism, because this is endemic, right, in our society. These police killings of black folks, right, unarmed black folks. So how do we explain that? Because it's more than just like one-off incidents. So that's kind of how we, came to deciding to do the book about systemic racism. And my goal in writing that was really I pictured myself as, a 7 or 8 year old, in the stuff that I was seeing, witnessing in my own family, in my neighborhood, in my community. I saw and observed the racial phenomena, right?
Hmm.
But not having any, framework to, be able to decipher what is what, and why this was happening. And so without, an analysis of like systemic racism, the the assumptions that maybe we're often, led to believe is like, oh, black people are violent, or all black people are poor because black people are lazy, or black people are just bad at math, right? Like that.
Hmm.
These are things that I, as a child, would just sort of assume that's how it was, because I wasn't given any other sort of analysis to really understand the racial differences that I saw.
Hmm. So, as the book has made its way around, do you feel educators or parents are struggling with this concept? And
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm so appreciative and feel blessed to have the opportunity to collaborate with the kids book about to write that book, because it gave me an opportunity to really meet and speak with a lot of parents who, white, black, Asian, Latin, like it didn't matter. People were struggling to like figure this out, and the book came out in 2020. So like that tells you what kind of moment we were in and what folks were trying to explain to their kids while they were, stuck at home with them all day,
yeah.
right, during COVID and the news being on, right, and about what's happening with the uprising, et cetera. Like it was the timing just worked out for being able to have really powerful conversations and people being curious in a way that
Hmm.
maybe they're not. I feel like that curiosity has faded, especially from a lot of white parents
Hmm.
in
Yeah,
recent years.
it's a pushback. It's like we want to put the blinders back on, and
Yeah.
if I don't see it, then it doesn't exist. But you're gonna have to
Mhm.
face that. You have to face it.
Absolutely.
Um, your book is not one of the banned books now, right? We can still get this in the schools.
I made some band lists. I definitely made some band lists.
Mm.
Yeah, it's a badge of honor. It's a I've been banned from some
Wow.
libraries and some school districts. Some in Florida for sure. Those are some of the first I remember. So yeah, it hit some list somewhere. Yeah, for
Shut the
sure.
front door.
Yeah, I mean they ban anything. Anything
Mm.
racist. They just yeah, absolutely. They don't want the real history. These powers that be, they don't want us telling the truth about the history of this country, and that's one of the things the book touches on in a very very simplistic, very simple way
Mm.
that you could explain to a 6 7 8 year old.
Yeah, got you, got you. We don't want to face reality. We're sitting on stolen land.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, exactly.
but let me I don't want to digress here. Let me stay on task here.
Hmm.
Um, the next thing I want to talk about is Grandma's Roses.
Mm.
And there is a lot of conversation here in 2025 that I'm hearing, especially when it comes to Black communities, Black families, about people expressing their frustration that Black families have kind of fell apart when grandma
Mm,
passed away. So
mhm.
my eyes really perked up when I saw the title of this particular documentary. But share us, what is this about?
Oof. Grandma's Roses is a film about the role that women of color play in their families, in their communities, right, in their workplaces, as not just like culture keepers or sort of moral cores, spiritual cores for their family, but also as like activists and people that fought for their communities and fought for other people and opened their homes up to other people in need. Um, Really the epitome of like compassion, right? And that comes from you know the a black tradition, a black matriarchal tradition.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I wanted to pay tribute to that while also paying tribute to my own grandmother. And so in the film, I tell the story of my grandmother, who she was, and sort of use that as a case study, so to speak, on like what how black women and other women of color um, have been impacted by both racism and sexism over throughout the course of American history, and yet like they've been the most resilient and have persevered, but that it's not like that hasn't come at a cost, right? And my call to action in that film is really for men, cisgendered men, to really step up in our roles, and we've let the women in our families bear the burden of so much of holding the family together, of uh, economically filling the gaps and where there's plenty of gaps. And so it's a call to action for us to just be better,
Mm-hmm.
and not necessarily fall into the Eurocentric ideal of like the man's job is to be the sole provider and the one who makes all the decisions and the quote unquote like king, that it's
Mm-hmm.
really about like who we are in our humanity, opening up ourselves to really care for one another and treat our partners with respect,
Mm-hmm.
and with dignity, and with equality, honestly. So, um, yeah, I mean, that film, I put so much of my own personal life and experience in that film, and it's available for people to watch on YouTube. It's a very powerful tribute, and I haven't seen anyone that watched it that wasn't like, damn, that was deep. You know what I mean? So it'll be well worth your time if you have the hour and 15 to watch it.
Okay, all right. So it's on YouTube. I was thinking we're gonna have to beg you for a special screening somewhere coming to a movie
Nah, it's
theater.
on YouTube, man.
Okay,
I try to make my stuff free and accessible to the people, you know?
okay, there you go. Well, let me be nosy because I saw a little. Who was your grandmother to you?
Who was my grandmother to me?
I
Wow.
saw a little flicker in your eyes. So let me be nosy here. Let me pry.
I mean, my grandmother, she passed in 2018. She was one of my best friends,
Mm-hmm.
and she was also my biggest champion. She always believed in me and whatever I wanted to do and the pursuits, the dreams that I had. Like she was always like, "You can do that. Let's do it. Like you
Mm-hmm.
go after it." She never wanted me to sell myself short. And before she passed, I mean, she just encouraged me to really pursue entrepreneurship. She really saw that for me and being self-employed, doing my thing. And so I started that journey soon after she passed. And she also just said, tomorrow's never promised. So live for today, live it up, enjoy your life, do what you want to do what's important to you. Because life is short and you just don't know when your last day is going to be. So every day's got to be important. You got to make it count.
There you go. Something about those grandmothers. Something about
Hmm.
those grandmothers. Well, let me
Yeah.
move on. I had to practice.
Yeah.
I saw the little. She was special. So the next one I
Yes.
want to talk about is the Black Fatherhood Project.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
unpack what that one is about.
Yeah, so the Black Fatherhood Project is, that I did that one in 2013, right? And then 7 years, Grandma's Rose is sort of like the follow-up to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Black Fatherhood Project is sort of the corollary to Grandma's Roses, Um, but it really focused on like the breakdown of the black family, the impacts of the black family by systemic racism, and provides really like an explainer for the statistics that we often see about black fatherhood in America.
Mhm.
And at the time that I made it, and I started this project, it was, 2006 is when I started. And in that time period, there was a lot of conversation around, the absentee black dad.
Mhm.
And so, but people were talking about it. People were pointing to it as explainers for all these different problems in America,
Mm.
but nobody was actually explaining how we got to this point.
Yeah.
And so that was my goal with the Black Fatherhood Project, was to really dig in deep. And I went way back, right before slavery, and looked at the black family, with the help of Dr. Wade Nobles, who is an incredible black family historian, who talked about the what the black family structure looked like and how it existed, like in West Africa, pre-colonial era. Um, and then we looked at slavery, and then we the film kind of walks through chronologically
Oh.
from slavery to Reconstruction, to the Great Migration, to the Civil Rights era, right? And then
Mhm.
in Vietnam War, and then the crack epidemic, and the era of mass incarceration. And so
Mhm.
when you look at all these things collectively, you're like, oh, well, I know how we got here now.
That's right.
They've undermined the stability and strength of the black family since we were brought to this continent, and not by accident, but
True.
intentionally.
True.
And so that's the thesis of the Black Fatherhood Project. And then after we kind of break that history down, it's a conversation with dads about what it means to be a father. What are the lessons you're trying to teach your child? What are the most rewarding experiences? What are the most challenging aspects of being a father this day and age? And so it's a powerful film in my humble opinion. But we did a lot with that, in 2013 when it came out. It was there was just a lot of interest in black men, and at that point in the social justice field. And so we did over 100 something screenings in a 2 year period, just in community, at schools, at churches, like community centers, government agency offices all over. Partnered with some incredible organizations to bring these conversations. And it wasn't just a film screening. We did like half day to full day events where we had the film, panel discussions, breakout groups, and really let people dig in, because it's the kind of film where you watch it, like, you can't just go home. You need to
Mhm.
process that, and process that
Unpack
with your
that.
people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So as you were working on the film, what were some aha moments for you, or some like whoa moments for you?
Yeah. So, when I was working on that film, there were so many aha moments.
Mm.
Learning about the, the how African families are see themselves, and what the role of people are in community, which community is really like an extension of family. And so one example would be, if you're in a village in West Africa, your role as a man, right, was not just to like have authority, responsibility for the
Mm.
safe caretaking and development of your children. It was basically all the other children, especially the ones that were kind of born in the same year as your children,
Mhm.
right? So it's kind of like similar, like a
Uncle,
cohort
great.
based.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but like you had the same sort of authority as the father did, right?
Mhm.
And vice versa. And so, but you also had the responsibility. It
Mhm.
cuts both ways, right? And
Yeah.
so, it wasn't like a "you ain't my daddy, don't tell me what to do" kind of scenario. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? But
Gotcha, gotcha.
that's also because these men also had the expectation on them to take care of these children when they were in need. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so it wasn't just, hey, these kids, because the conversation that we have a lot today is like, these kids don't want to listen to nobody, or you know what I mean? But the thing is, we're also not often taking stepping into our role as really like caretakers and nurturers and supporters of these kids. Um, Oftentimes we just want to tell them when they're doing wrong and where they need to fix their behavior, but we're not necessarily saying, hey, you need something to eat, like come on over, whatever, right? So it cuts both ways, and that's an important part of the film. I think the message that people really took away after watching it, that was a big aha moment. And then I would say the other aha moment was, um, these policies that were in place. One that's sort of known as No Man in the House law.
What was that
Um,
movie? Claudine?
Claudine, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, or James Earl Jones, which illustrated it very well. That was an administrative policy within welfare departments that basically you couldn't you couldn't receive welfare benefits if there was a man in the household. And so even despite the fact that men were discriminated against and had a really hard time finding stable employment, even more so than women who, often did domesticated work. Um, if you had no income, it would be better for you to actually leave the house so that your family could at least get some benefits and feed themselves than to stay there. And I mean, just think about the impact that that had over the decades that was in place. Um, that's just one example. And so when I really started to see like, yo, this was the actual law, like this was like in writing, like, oh,
It's all by
okay,
design,
yeah,
all by
yeah,
design.
yeah,
Yeah, and
exactly.
listening to you talk earlier about how West African uh, structures, family structures are designed, it made me think these are my grandparents behind me,
Yeah,
and
beautiful.
especially these, the whole block was theirs. All the children,
Hmm.
and we're Southern
Yeah.
folks.
Hmm.
So it's somewhere along the way we brought some of that with us here,
Yeah.
but over time, by design, we lost all of that, and I think that's where we see a lot of the breakdowns in community that really allowed for us to progress and thrive. But I'm hoping the times that we're in now shows us that we need to get back to some sort of collective community, sense of community there. But anyway,
Yeah, absolutely.
let me
Absolutely.
go
Yeah. I
ahead.
mean, I'll say I want to, I think
Yeah.
the false promise of racial integration
Hmm.
has a lot to do with that because they in some ways forced integration, and addressing segregation is an important was an important step, but
Hmm.
it was a half step, right? So you may be able to move to certain communities, but if you're dealing with a bunch of racist neighbors, then you're alone, right? And
Hmm.
so that also contributes to the sort of increased individualism I feel like we've
Yes.
seen in the Black communities out of mere circumstance, as well as being sold lies about everyone in this country has an opportunity and everyone should be able to do it themselves and all of that sort of propaganda. um and
Pull yourself
so
up by your bootstraps.
exactly, right. And so I think that's that also by design.
Yeah. I can talk about that for a while, and I won't say
Yeah.
focus focus on you. So let me see here. Let me ask. I think I have one more question or two more questions before I ask my random question because I don't want to. Oh, I've already went over time. I'm sorry. I kind
uh,
of.
no problem.
So for Black filmmakers, there's always this quandary of telling our stories honestly, telling our cultural nuances, but not piling on more trauma to us as a collective, as a Black community. So, what advice do you give to Black filmmakers when they're trying to ethically bring something into this world, a piece of art into this world?
That's a great question. I mean, I struggle with that in my own work. I struggle with that in as a viewer, a consumer, right? There's some stuff like some of the movies that come out. I'm like,
I don't want
it
to
looks
watch
like
it.
it's good, it's probably important for me, but I
Ah,
don't want to watch it. Like
yeah.
I want to live right now in Black joy or whatever.
Hmm.
And so, I think that my approach with the Black Fatherhood Project was to just try to create a balance,
Hmm.
And so when I was making the Black Fatherhood Project, I'm, going through this deep, dark history, right? It's like kind of like depressing, right? And so the last part that I added into the film was the part about the African family, because I was like, even though it starts at the beginning of the film, like it's the last component that I added to the film, because I was like, I gotta give us something to aspire to and to
Yeah.
remind us that we are more than all of what happened to us, right?
Hmm.
And what's happening to us, I should say. Um, remind ourselves where we come from, and that we had some really beautiful values that we were living in collectively, right? And at that time. Um, and then I think with grandma's roses too, like, just I'm interviewing grandmas, and they're sweet and they're inspiring, and they're like just sharing these beautiful stories, and just illuminating like the brightness of like their compassion and their humanity, and how they, over the years that they've gotten older, learned to embrace their complexities. I think was like really beautiful. And so, again, I tried to balance that with some of the dark history, right? And the trauma that we've experienced, intergenerationally. Um, and so I tried, I'm proud of what I did and what I created, but there's probably people that would say that was too heavy, or that was too
Really?
ne based on negative experience. Yeah, of course, there's always people that will say that. Um, so I think it's definitely a difficult thing to achieve. There's no perfection in it. I think if you're mindful of it, that's the first step, you know. And if you can appreciate the challenge and the complexity, that's even better.
Hmm.
That's it.
Yeah. Like you said, some stuff I can't watch.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just, I can't go through that mental drain on
Right.
that. So,
Eh,
but yeah, but some stuff you need to watch because you need
Yeah.
to be educated. You can't walk around blind
Yeah.
doing it. So, it's a toss up. So you have to wait. I remember my daughter she was about 9, and I sat her in front of the TV for like 3 days and made her watch Roots, the whole thing from
Mm-hmm.
start to finish.
Mm-hmm.
And when she finished, Mom, why did you make me watch that? I'm so mad. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
you got to take it in. I'm sorry, but
Mm-hmm. Well,
it
and when you're into work too, like for me, if I'm, when I want to sit in front of the TV screen, like I've been into work talking about the stuff all day, right?
Mhm.
And so when I sit in front of the TV screen, I'm like, I want to take my mind off of those things, right?
Mhm.
So that's why I might put on a comedy or a drama or just something
Mhm.
completely unrelated, because or avoid watching some of those films that you're supposed to see, because I'm just like, I mentally I need a break, you know.
Yeah. So we know you're working on the one that you won't tell me about. Is there any other stuff you got on the pipeline that we should be looking out for?
That's a great question. I got a lot of things going, but I think we covered most of the main things. Yeah, that I can think of right now. We covered the main projects, so I appreciate that.
I'm going to ask you my random question, and then I'm going to ask you to tell us how we connect with you and how we
Okay.
pick up the band book and all this stuff. And we know
Yeah.
that Grandma Roses is on YouTube. Is the Black Fatherhood on?
Yeah, it's also on YouTube. Yep.
Okay, let's see what we got here. What is the worst purchase that you've ever made?
Oh, I've never been asked that question. The worst purchase that I ever made? God, that's a hard question to put me on the spot. The worst purchase that I've ever made. Oh man. Um,
Or
I,
food?
can
You
you
don't
ask me
get
another
credit for
one?
it?
I don't have a good one
Okay,
for
okay.
that. Yeah.
I'll ask you another one. No worries. I got questions.
I
Let's
try
see
not
what
to
we
have
got.
regrets in life.
What is better, cats or dogs?
Dogs, easily. Thank you for the easy question. Dogs are just a gift to humans.
And not
Um,
cats?
it's not hasn't been my experience. I'll say that. It hasn't been my experience. I know there's cat people. I'm not trying to alienate cat people here. I respect you and your
Mm-hmm.
affinity for cats. For me, dogs are just a
Guys are
gift.
always dog people. I don't know
Is
what
that what
that
it
is.
is?
Yeah, guys are always dog
Yeah, I
people.
think that's kind of there's some truth to that, because um I mean, they're there for you.
Mm-hmm.
The emotional
No
intelligence that
matter
dogs
what.
have, they understand when you're
Just so
upset.
happy.
Yeah, they're there for you when you need them. That's been my experience. And they're fun to play with and be around. And like, yeah, I'm a huge dog fan.
Mhm. Awesome. I have one more question. I lied. I
Yeah.
got one more question. Um, in the Black community, there is a tendency for some reason or another for us to steer our boys away from that creative side of themselves.
Mm.
What would you say to parents about the importance of allowing boys to express their creative side?
Thank you so much for this question. I was actually thinking about this before our interview today. Um, I think to be creative is to embrace your full humanity, embrace your messiness, your brokenness, um, and also your like all the energies that you emanate and were born with, right? The
Mhm.
masculine, the feminine, and everything else. Um, we've been, pushed to shut those things off, right? We've
Mhm.
been pushed um, to act really in a box, like referring to Tony Porter's man box. As men, is to not feel emotion, to not be vulnerable, and to put on a mask of toughness, of resilience, and danger, right? Especially for Black men.
Mhm.
And so all of that is antithetical to art and to creativity. To be artistic, to embrace an artistic mindset, to explore your own ideas, like you have to be vulnerable.
Mhm.
You have to understand like your messiness, your brokenness inside, and and you have to live in all the feelings. So, um, I think that's probably one of the most tragic things is that I think as Black men, um, growing up, we're not encouraged to it really embrace and explore art and creativity in those ways.
Mhm.
Um, and it's also one of the most optimistic and promising things because art can be so healing. And so when we are able to engage, men and masculine folks through art and like understanding their experiences, their families, right, their viewpoints, um, a lot of really transformative work can take place.
Well, tell us how we pick up the banned book and exactly where the films are located and how we can, even if we're not nonprofits, reach out and see the work that you're
Yeah.
doing. Just tell us how we connect with you.
Absolutely, yeah. So you can find me on Instagram, Jordan.Theory. Also pretty active on LinkedIn. So you can message me on LinkedIn if you're on LinkedIn and want to connect. You can find the book at akidsbookabout.com. And again, you can find the Black Father Project and Grandma's Roses films, the full films on YouTube. And I encourage anyone to reach out with any questions, encouragement, or uh, constructive criticism.
Constructive, because like Erica Badu said, I'm an artist and I'm sensitive about.
About my shit. That's right.
There you go. There you
That's
go.
right.
Well, sir, I'm I know you don't know me, but I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
I'm just so proud of what you're pouring back into this world. I'm proud of the example that you're showing for others, the stories that you're telling. I mean, just kudos from below me. Just kudos from below me. So
Thank you so much. I appreciate you, and I'm so grateful that you're doing this podcast. Gave me an opportunity to speak about some of the work, and um, I don't take that for granted. So I appreciate that, and keep the conversation going. And yeah, I'll keep listening too.
awesome. Awesome. I appreciate it. Well, that is all for this week's episode of The Male Perspective. I am your host, Lana Reid, and I will see everybody next time.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Black Men Matter series on the Male Perspective. This podcast is an initiative of Conversations in Color, a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to uplifting Black voices. Make sure to check out our website, conversationsincolor.org, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platforms. We'll see you on the next episode.